To edit video comfortably in DaVinci Resolve with a Wacom or Wacom tablet, there's a 1 to 2 week learning curve, and the default settings, they need some customization. But I still love using a tablet because, well, 1, my wrist isn't sore after working long hours. 2, speed and control, because 1 point on the tablet here maps exactly to 1 point on the computer screen. 3, I have pressure sensitivity for painting in Fusion, so it's great for cleanup during finishing. Oh, and the pen itself, there's no batteries. It uses some sort of magnetic technology, so you're not needing to recharge anything. Top is going to be right click, bottom is middle click. Welcome to my quick setup guide for using a Wacom or Wacom with DaVinci Resolve. Just so you know, off the top, this is not a sponsored video. I've bought all these tablets with my own money. The one I use now is the Intuos Pro Medium. It just works best for me. But over the years, I've used, this one's the Intuos Small. It's before they had the Pro Series. This can work great as well, especially if you don't have a huge monitor. The very first one I got was the Intuos, not even the Intuos, it was the Wacom Bamboo, this little tiny thing. This is what got me into tablets to begin with, maybe on Final Cut Pro version 5 back in those days. But there's other brands out there, so I want you to be aware. Wacom, that's just one of them. This one is made by Huion, and they make stuff that is a little bit more affordable. So look at those as well. I will tell you this one, this is my son's. It's the H1060P model. It mostly works good with Resolve, but in Fusion, the zooming function doesn't quite work the same way, or I couldn't get it to work at all like how I like to do with the Wacoms. So regardless of the brand of tablet that you pick up, they all basically make a very specific driver version for your operating system, and they're updated frequently. So for our case today, we've got the Wacom, so I'm going to go to Wacom.com's website. There's a drivers and downloads button. I'll click that, and if I scroll down, you'll see there's one driver right now for Mac, one for Windows, and you can get it, hit the download button. In fact, on the Mac, they have this important setup guide, and that's because the Mac is kind of finicky about security and permissions and that sort of thing. So when you do install it, make sure you say allow, or just pay attention to this setup guide here, because this is going to get you through the permissions so that your tablet can properly control the computer. It's always changing, so it's a moot point for me to show you here right now. But under system settings, you'll see privacy and security. Accessibility has an area where it needs to be allowed, so make sure that is checked blue. But the point is once you have it installed, you restart the machine, now we can set up some programming, some custom buttons, and that's what we're going to do down here at the bottom. So in system settings, once it's restarted, you'll see we have a Wacom Center and a Wacom tablet. Now the Wacom Center, this is actually its own like separate application right here, and this shows you what the tablet is. You don't actually do, at least on a Mac, you don't actually set a whole lot of stuff in here. You can set a profile up and then have whatever settings you have saved to like some cloud storage, or save out as a preset file that you can load to other machines. But what we're going to do is so simple today that you really don't need to know that. What you really need to know is just a couple things that we'll be controlling under the Wacom tablet section of it. And so right here, we'll go right from the top down. There's a battery on these things. Don't use the battery. Don't rely on the Bluetooth that's in these things, because they lag and they're not very responsive. And the whole point of this is precision. And if you're lagging over Bluetooth, it's not going to be a good experience. So make sure you use the USB cable and plan to use the USB cable. The next thing I'll tell you about custom setting up on these things is a lot of them, they actually built in, there's a switch on these that you can toggle for touch control. I would say it's really important, keep your touch control off. The whole reason for this is to get precision with the end of a stylus or a pen, and this fat finger right here is not going to give you precision or control. So anyways, make sure your system settings is open on your Mac. Go to the bottom, you should find a tab here for Wacom tablet, and this is where we can control all our custom settings. Now I have different settings here for different pens. Don't worry about that. We're just going to be setting up one of them. It's going to be really simple, but let's first look at the functions one under the tool row, which allows us to change the buttons that are on the tablet itself. So this one has 4 buttons on top, 4 on the bottom, and the middle one looks like a search dial from our keyboards, but it's actually, they call it the touch ring. We're going to leave that as default. And in fact, the express keys is what they call these buttons on here. I leave all of them basically alone with one exception, and that's called display toggle. And I set this right above the search dial or the touch ring so I can easily feel this. And what display toggle means, this is a really important concept of using a tablet. is if you use multiple computer monitors, what happens by default, you can see I actually have 3 different computer monitors plugged in. It maps this surface here to all 3 as if they were one big surface. So this upper right corner, if you had it set to do all 3 monitors, it's actually the upper left of the leftmost display. And the upper right would be the upper right point on the rightmost display. And now this is fine for getting around for normal computer tasks, but when you're actually doing paint work or you're really focusing on an image like an Affinity Photo or in Fusion or something, you kind of want to map this whole surface to just the one computer monitor that has your main canvas that you're working. And so that's what I use it for. So you can see here under the display toggle settings, I actually set my monitor 1, which is this screen capture window that you're seeing right now, to toggle between this and then all 3 monitors. And it's done with display toggle button, which is this button right here. So if I push this one more time, you don't see anything change on the screen. And now I can go off the screen and it's actually mapping all 3 of my computer monitors together so that if I had a Slack message or a Teams message on another monitor, I can get to that. And then when I go back to painting, I push it again and it jumps my cursor back so that the upper right here is the upper right of the one single monitor. Now, you could have it jump from one monitor to the other to the other. That's what, if you checked all these boxes, but I just like having monitor 1, whatever the main display that you're working from is set here so that it toggles from the one monitor to all monitors. Now, that's it for the express keys. There's other things in here. There's a thing called a radial menu, which I had started to set up a custom thing and was going to show you, but to be honest, basically what this is an on-screen way of just using your hands on the tablet to touch things. I don't think this is faster than actually using the keyboard shortcuts with your left hand. But if you find a way of using the Fusion radial menu, please do let me know because I'm always looking for ways to get faster. The next setup is going to be the pen settings. So under the pen settings, you can see I actually have different settings for different applications. So just like the Logitech mice, you can set different shortcuts on different buttons to do different things in different applications. So under all other apps, so basically things that are not DaVinci or not Fusion, I set the bottom one to pan and scroll and the top one to right click. That's kind of self-explanatory. What pan and scroll means, you can see these are navigation, pan, scroll. It just means if I'm on a website, I can hold down on it and navigate by going up and down. So I don't have to go grab that sidebar over here, which is kind of elusive. And in fact, it's turned off on some of the Mac finders, if you've seen by default. But if you just hold down on that bottom one for pan and scroll, I can just swipe up and down on the tablet and get a nice pan and scroll. And then the right click is kind of self-explanatory. You right click and you get all the contextual stuff there. Now, the difference comes in when we look at our DaVinci Resolve settings or our Fusion settings. And the main thing is I still have the top set to right click. So I have that right click muscle memory. It's the top of the 2 buttons. But the bottom one instead is going to be middle click. And the reason middle click is so important is all the things I'm going to show you when I open up DaVinci Resolve next. That's also the reason you really need a middle click if you use DaVinci Resolve at all. Meaning if you use some of those Apple mice that don't have that, think about getting it. Or if you use a laptop, a MacBook Pro, there's an app that's out there. It's called Middle, and it allows you, I set it on the Middle app to use 4-finger tap as a middle click. So you know you need middle click, but why do you need middle click? Well, let's take a look over here. So in the edit page of Resolve, the middle click is also your pan around the image kind of tool. So the interesting thing is you don't actually have to touch the tablet for this function to work. So if I hold down that bottom button on here and I just hover the screen while I touch in the viewer, I'm able to pan and move that image around. So the same thing as if you have a mouse, you can smash down that middle, but if you want to zoom in, you have a scroll wheel. So this is a difference. I don't have the scroll wheel on the mouse here anymore, but I do have this dial. So as long as I position my mouse over here and then I touch this dial in, just move this with my finger, I'm able to zoom in on that image. So if I want to take a quick close look at one particular thing, maybe it's the tip of the stylus here, I can now hold the bottom while hovering and reposition it. Now the zooming in the edit page and the color page, they always zoom off the very center of the image. It's different than in Fusion, which I'll get to in a second. And then to zoom back out, I would just use the scroll wheel to zoom back out or hit the keyboard shortcut Z zooms to fit. So the Z zoom to fit is different than you probably, like how do I get this so that this percentage here fits the viewer? It's Z, and there's shortcuts all over the place in here. So same thing happens in the color page. If I need to pan around the image, I just hold that middle click and then that lets me get around. If I need to zoom into it, it's this little touch dial, which is really, this one is the best feeling one that I've had from previous tablets in the past. What if I'm in Fusion? Now, this is where the thing really shines, in my opinion. So we've talked about panning around. This works with node graphs as well. So if I click the bottom middle click here, I can pan around this node tree here for this opening shot that I did. This even works in like the project manager. So if I hold down that middle click, I can pan around and find things in bins and project managers really, really easily. It's basically, you can see it gives me that hand icon there. It's basically like I'm just grabbing you and I'm pulling everything else around. It's a very tactile, nice way of working. Now, the zooming control in Fusion is unparalleled. It's the way to work. It basically zooms around where your cursor position is. So the panning is still the same. I hold down the middle click and then I hover on the tablet. You can see I'm not touching, hopefully on this camera. But if I want to zoom in specifically to the pixels on the points of that stylus, what I do is I put my cursor where it is, I hold middle click, I smash down on the tablet so I am touching on it, and I swipe to the right to zoom in, and I can very quickly move into the exact little pixels if I need to cut something out, roto it, if I need to do any sort of specific edge work. This is a very quick way to get to those exact pixels. Now, if you're not seeing the actual pixels when you zoom in this tight, this is a 4K image, it's probably because it's set to the default of this setting called smooth resize, which does this sort of, I don't find it super useful. It does this sort of like blurring filter to smooth things out. I want to see the edges of pixels, so this is under that 3-dot menu, uncheck smooth resize. Now, if you want to zoom back out, just do the opposite. So to zoom in, we swiped to the right, directly right to the right. If I want to zoom out, I hold down, smash on the tablet, and drag left. Whoops, I did that to the node flow, but it's the same idea. So I click on the viewer here, and I zoom out by sliding to the left. Realistically, the way I typically work if I need to draw a mask on something is I would zoom in by going to the right, and then I would hit Command F or Control F to zoom back out, find the next point that I need to zoom into, Command or Control F to zoom to fit. But you'll notice on my tablets, it's pretty warm because I do a lot of this, zooming in to inspect things or to really pay attention to the edges. So again, that's hold down middle click, that's the bottom button, with smashing on the tablet, going to the right to zoom in. I'm still holding down on there, to the left to zoom back out. So some more resolve tips with the stylus. One is, a lot of times when I'm working in this list view, it can sometimes be annoying, and you click on here and you start to rename it accidentally. So if you use the thumbnail view, sometimes this is an easier way of loading up your timelines. And another thing you can do when you have lots of timelines open is you can use the middle click to close these. By the way, if you don't have stacked timelines is what they call this, it's found under this menu right here, display stacked timelines. It's just a way to quickly jump between different timelines without having, you can see them all available right here. But to close them, middle click works. So the idea is you just put your cursor right at the top of the tab, hit middle click, which is, again, I have it set to the bottom button on my stylus right here. And I can close this Best Edit Ever O2 copy. That's probably the best name ever I've made. Middle click, for me the first thing that I used it for was for copying and pasting color grades. So it's a copy and paste button. So here on the color page, let's say I do something to a clip first. We'll come over here and just do a crazy pink offset and say this is our favorite color grade we ever did in the world, and we want this applied to other clips. What you do is you just select the other clips that you want to. So they're highlighted orange now. And then you steal the grade from, you basically middle click the one you want to take from. So I want to take from 8 with the middle click, and it does a copy and paste and takes everything in your nodes stack. So I just did one silly thing here with offset, but you could do this amongst a lot of clips. I could select a batch of clips right here. So let's say it's clips 2 through 5, and middle click on 7 here. And you can see those all just got that from the middle click copy and paste function. Oh, and one thing about this copying and pasting between clips that I just learned in the past few weeks is in the Fusion page, you also have a clips view of everything. This actually works in the Fusion page as well to copy and paste Fusion effects. If you middle click the one you want to copy and paste from, it'll say, do you want to overwrite the Fusion composition? Now there's nothing in this, but the idea is if you had some simple effect that would translate to the other clip, you can do this in the Fusion page as well. Now here's a thing that comes up quite a lot on the edit page when you're working over here, and that is track heights. Now I'm going to close up my media pool to give me a little bit more workspace, But if you move your cursor over between two tracks here, you can click and be really precise and sort of grab that to change your track height. However, there's a much faster way. So if you're used to, on a mouse, you have Shift and then the scroll wheel will basically move all the tracks larger and smaller. But since we don't have a scroll wheel, we can't do Shift scroll wheel, but we do have this dial here on this Intuos Pro Medium. So the way this works is you need to first sort of click into the window or have your cursor over this section that you want to increase the track heights for. So I have mine in that track header for the video. I'm holding Shift on my keyboard and then using this dial here, and this lets you get those tracks taller and shorter. So a lot of times with limited screen real space, you might need to come over here and say, I need my audio smaller. So I'm moving my cursor over to that section, and then I can change all the track heights at once to get that smaller, get it out of the way so that I can focus maybe on the picture, click over there and make the picture, the thumbnails and the rectangles bigger on the video tracks. So don't forget, first click in the window, just to be sure you've got that area selected, then it's Shift, and then this little dial right here will increase and decrease the heights. How do we select edit points themselves? It's easy with a stylus to select multiple clips, you just click and drag them. But to select the edit points, sometimes it can be challenging because you go in here and maybe you grab this and you nudged it and you changed the edit point on accident when you did the selection. So you can actually select it without worrying about changing the edit point when you make the selection. I'm going to undo that by holding down Option or Alt on a Windows machine and Shift, hold those down, and then if you do a lasso selection, it will just select the edit point with the stylus. It's a really handy way. In fact, you can select multiple edit points this way as well. So if I wanted to roll all those to the right, I could use my period key to sort of nudge and change the edit points that way. Another thing that I commonly use this technique for is if I need to line up a bunch of layers of titles, I could Option or Alt Shift select, and then move my playhead to where it needs to go, hit Extend Edit or E for Extend Edit, and it takes everything out to that point. In fact, Extend Edit can be used to shorten things as well if you didn't know that. That's E. So the touch ring was really made to change brush sizes in Photoshop and Affinity, and it can't do that in Fusion that I'm aware of, but I will show you how I use paint brushes in Fusion with pressure sensitivity. So this over here, this is a tutorial I did not too long ago about how you can save magic mask. So basically the idea of the tutorial is we save out a saver node that has just the alpha channel information in it so it doesn't get lost and have to retrack later. I would check it out, it'll be linked right now. But there's always issues with magic mask and flickering, like one frame at a time. So I'll take this as an opportunity to just show you how I'm taking a saver node going into a bitmap to mask it with a mask paint node. So mask paint is like a paint node, but it just works on the alpha channel. So for instance, over here we have different types of paint strokes. There's the multi-stroke, which works on one frame at a time, which is great for cleaning up masks. And then this one right here is the one you typically use if you needed to go across all frames. Now, I just want to use the multi-stroke because it's a magic mask cleanup job. And the idea is I want to take away so that this arrow is not popping up on this original image. So if we look at the original footage here, you'll see I want to just grab her, and there's no difference for that frame to separate her, so this is why we're doing this. So if I go back to the mask paint node, find the area that needs cleaned up on mask paint itself, we have underneath the brush controls, and this is the same for paint as well, there's a drop down here. It won't be shown to you at first. You have to disclose it with the triangle. Vary opacity by pressure. So it knows if you have a tablet connected and controlling that you can control opacity by pressure. Now there's obviously other things here. You can say you want to vary size by pressure. Some people do that if they want to push a little and it's a smaller diameter brush. I don't think that makes a lot of sense. I'm going to do vary opacity by pressure, and when I lay down paint onto my canvas, how hard I push is how much opacity is getting laid down. This is a big difference. On a mouse, you just have to, the opacity is the opacity you get when you lay it down. So the mouse is either on or off. That's a big difference. This is allowing you to have degrees of opacity as you lay the paint down. So with mask paint, you only have an alpha to work with. So if I want to lay a little bit of alpha channel down, now I'm not cleaning it up, I'll just lightly stroke here. You can see I'm getting a little bit of opacity, but if I push really hard, I get a much harder, more solid alpha channel. So that's a really, really nice thing to have when you're doing cleanup on stuff. So I'm going to hit Command-Z a couple times to get rid of those. And I'll show you if I wanted to remove this. The idea with Mask Paint tool, it's confusing to a lot of people. You need to change your alpha slider before you paint when you're using things like the multi-stroke because you can't change it afterwards. So I'm just changing this down to alpha 0 here, and then I can come in here and clean up this arrow, making nice light strokes. And then here's the thing. So to change brush sizes over here, because this touch ring doesn't work, what you do with the stylus is you hold down Command or Control on a PC. So I'm holding down Command, and then you just take your tablet, and just like we did for sizing the scale of the image, we go left to make the brush smaller. So I'm touching the tablet, and then right to make the brush size larger while holding down Command, okay? So I get the brush size about where I want it. Let's say I want it this large, and then you can quickly come in here and make a light touch to try to clean up, you know, parts of your rough garbage mats for slap comps and that sort of thing. So to zoom out, it's the same thing that I've showed before. If you want to see the whole image, Command or Control F, or if you want to do it with the controls on the canvas, hold down middle mouse, the bottom or middle click, and it's swipe to the right, swipe to the left to go in and out. So you can easily, maybe there's some parts down here at the bottom that were sort of like garbage. You could use that to sort of clean up. And it's all based off of how hard I'm pushing on the canvas. So same thing would happen with the normal paint tool. So if you need to totally make up an area of color and use frequency separation, I've got tutorials on that. Having pressure sensitivity is huge for that. Hey, I know learning this can be a challenge, but one way you can fast track your training on it is to practice with connect the dots, believe it or not. So go grab your favorite connect the dots off the internet. I've got a snowman right here. Go to the Fusion page and we'll just do some painting with connect the dots on this. So grab a paint node. After this, you can use the shortcut shift space to pull up the tool picker. We'll start typing PAN, and we'll get a paint tool right there. We'll load the paint tool into the viewer by picking and flicking. Grab a paintbrush. It doesn't matter if you're on stroke or multi-stroke. The idea is you're just getting used to where are we drawing. Let's put some color on the paint. We'll make it, I don't know, blue. It's winter here in New York, sort of this, you know, and the idea is let's just practice making strokes. Now, one thing you can't do in Fusion, like you can in like Photoshop, is you can't rotate this canvas. So you do need to get used to doing strokes that are vertical, that are horizontal, not always left to right strokes, which are the easiest to do. So in this instance here, I'll make my strokes a little bit smaller, holding down Command, going left, and just practice drawing lines here. You know, I'm not great at this, but the idea is the more you spend doing this, the better you'll get. The quicker your strokes, the straighter they'll be. So just an idea. Go find yourself a Frosty or some connect the dots to practice training with the tablet. One more important use case for the stylus is if you draw masks in Fusion. So polygons, B-splines, anything where you need custom control of edges, this is the way to do it. And it's probably not for the reasons that you think. So for instance, the beginning shot of this tutorial, I did a little paint cleanup over here to remove a cable that was powering the rotation of the spinning of this thing. So I just did a paint node on it, and I put a polygon around it to just isolate the changes, just changing the plate in the smallest area possible. But what most people don't know when they draw polygons and start to manipulate points is you don't have to go directly in to say, oh, I need this specific point, and then click right on there. No, you just have to be closer to that point than any of the other points. So what I mean by that is if you hold down Option or Alt modifier, and I have this held down, and I click closer to this middle point here than those others, I can grab that from not actually clicking the exact control point. So it's kind of like a looser way of being able to select something, but still get that real nice precision on where you want it to land. So a lot of times in rotoscoping, you want to move edges and not points. So this allows you to lasso select edges. So let's say I want to just lasso select these two edges here or these 2 points that control an edge on the left, and then I hold Option, and I can drag that edge, move it wherever it needs to go on this double polygon, and get lots of precision. You can see there was obviously, I did a roto after this had been painted over to put the tablet back on top, and you'll see, here it is. It's looking through a planar transform, but you can see here, if you need to come in here and just change one of these points, yeah, you could go and get really explicit with your cursor and move it this way, or sometimes if you just need to do a little, you can use the keys on the keyboard, up, down, left, right, or Option. Command does even smaller increments, Command or Control. But like I said before, like just hold Option, get close to the point, and you can drag and move that point so that you don't have to go in there quite so tight all the time. And it's just a fast, comfortable way to work. I realized making this video, the first time I used a Wacom tablet was way back in 2004 on an Autodesk Smoke system. We were doing something where we had to remove 3.2 pull down to integrate the graphics. But either way, the thing is it takes time to learn how the tool works, and you're going to have to build new muscle memory. So think about chucking away your mouse for a while and just using this at least for a couple weeks. And then you'll finally get through that learning hurdle, and it's going to be like, where was this my whole life? Now, if you want to learn more about it, I have an affiliate link below. I noticed it's on sale right now. It could be a good time to check it out. And don't be scared of trying some of the other brands as well. I appreciate you so much. My name is Chadwick. I'm a finishing editor here in New York. I do training, I do consultations, and because there's so much more to learn, I'll see you in the next video.